Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, you guys, I am so super duper excited to share this episode with you. Before we get into it, let me just tell you a little bit about my guest. So today's special guest is my friend, the amazing Tess Masters, who some of you might already know as the Blender Girl. She's kind of famous, you guys. And because I want to make sure I always read the official, I want you guys to have the official. I could talk to you about her as my friend and as a human being, which obviously you'll hear all about in the episode. But here's her official bio and why you should listen. Okay. So Tess Masters is an actor, a presenter, a coach, a podcaster. She's the author of 3 books from Random House: The Blender Girl, The Blender Girl Smoothies, and The Perfect Blend. You can find hundreds of fantastic also recipes on theblendergirl.com. And through her Skinny-60 health programs, Tess and her team of dietitians have helped thousands of people get healthy using science-based food and lifestyle strategies and personalized nutrition solutions. So Tess and her health tips and recipes have been featured all over the place, you guys, in the LA Times, the Washington Post, In Style, Real Simple, Prevention, Shape, Glamour, Clean Eating, Yoga Journal, Vegetarian Times, and the Today Show, Fox Home and Family, and a bunch of other media outlets. As a spokesperson, presenter, and recipe developer, Tess has collaborated with brands including KitchenAid, Vitamix, Williams-Sonoma, Four Seasons, Whole Food Market, Sprout Farmers Markets, Silk, So Delicious, and a ton more. She also has a podcast, which I have been lucky enough to be a guest on, called It Has to Be Me, where she interviews trailblazers about how they take action on the things that they've been dreaming about. And here's the thing, you guys. In our conversation, Tess brought so much humor, honesty, and wisdom. And we talked about all kinds of stuff like finding confidence, navigating self-doubt, and how to make real change. And I'm talking real deal Holyfield change, not just wishy-washy change, real change and how to make it stick. So we dive into some of her personal story, like what she was like as a kid, how her childhood informs the work that she does now. We talk about her challenges and her breakthroughs and how she turned her fear into, I love to talk about fear and transforming that sucker from fear to love. And we talk about how she turned her fear into fuel for meaningful growth and how it has also helped thousands and thousands of other people on the planet. She also talks about, and we share about her journey, her health journey, and how it led her to create both the Skinny-60 and the 60-day reset programs. I went through the 60-day reset program, and you guys know me, I'm wicked picky. I always say I don't recommend or refer people into things I have not already experienced myself. And her 60-day reset program, it helps people like us build healthy, joyful habits that truly last. Tess shares this, a bunch of great, let me just give you a sample of some of these fantastic quotes. She says, "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting in the presence of fear and building a different relationship with it." She says, "Health isn't about dogma or rigidity. It's about flexibility. It's about being committed to your choices, but flexible with your approach." She says, "My 60-day reset isn't a diet." And it's not. She's not a fan of diets. You're going to hear about that in this episode. She says, "It's about nourishment, real change, and finding what works for you, not someone else's rules." And that's something I can absolutely tell you, that her programs are deeply personalized. Her philosophy is filled with compassion, real life know-how, and her programs are filled with, I always say, smarty pants backed science, right? Delivered from experts and nutritionists, like real deal, like Holyfield people, right? Not somebody who took a weekend course in a nutrition thing. These are experts. Her stuff is backed by science, but it is shared and delivered in a fun, practical, down-to-earth, applicable way. Right? So you're not going to get all that overwhelm and not knowing how to apply stuff for you. And this is my final thoughts on this. If you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking, we had a few good laughs, if you're looking for a good laugh or some practical ideas to make healthy living not only doable, but also enjoyable, right? Or if you just want, because she shared some things that I thought were really powerful. If you just want the reminder that you are not alone in the ups and downs of your life, then you're definitely going to want to give this sucker a listen, because I think that this conversation is going to leave you feeling excited and empowered and maybe just ready to try something new for yourself. All right, you guys, I give you the wonderful, the beautiful, the brilliant Tess Masters. Enjoy. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I am super duper excited today because I'm talking to my friend who I know you're going to love too. But here's the thing. You guys know how picky I am about having people on my show. I almost never, ever, ever, ever have guests on. So when I do, you know that there's a good reason why. So if you remember, I don't know, last year sometime, I let everybody know that I had just been on my friend Tess's podcast, and I am now having her on my podcast. And I can't wait for you guys to hear all about her. One of the cool things. So first of all, say hi, Tess. Hi.
Hi, I'm very honored to be a guest,
Okay.
I must say, because I know how picky you are.
Okay, first of all, you're going to be obsessed with her accent like me because I could listen to her all day long. But we're going to talk about like your programs, like there's all these things I want to get into. But one of the things I love about you is you're also like me, a multi-passionate, what I consider like a multi-passionate person. So you don't just do one thing. And I know like you guys, if you listen to the intro, right? She's an actor, she's an author, she's a coach, she's a podcaster. She like does a bunch of shit is what I basically was saying. So you do a lot of different things, and I kind of want to dive into all of these little nooks and crannies of like how you serve and how you show up in the world and like what lights you up. So first of all, just thank you for being on the show, and I'm super duper excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. This will be fun. You and I can talk for hours.
Yes,
and we have.
Look it. So one of the things, whenever I do have a guest on, though, I like to ask them a question in this realm. So, what were you like as a kid? Like were you like quiet, nerdy, like big, excited? Like what was your vibe as a kid? And do you think that your childhood and how you were and the shit that went down in your life, that it informs or influences or inspired the work that you do today?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, tell us.
I was thirsty. I was curious. I was adventurous. My parents helped me believe that I could do anything and be anything. We traveled the world together. We lived in a bunch of different countries. My mother speaks a lot of different languages. My parents, you know, some people spend their money on houses and cars. My parents spent it on experiences. So we had season tickets to the ballet, season tickets to opera and plays, and we were constantly experimenting with different food and cuisines from around the world. And my mother was doing all this amazing stuff. We traveled, you know, to different countries every year. My mum was a teacher, so they would pull us out of school. My dad would take extra vacation time, and we would immerse ourselves in a culture. And we weren't allowed to say we didn't like something until we tried it. So, I don't like that, you know, like a food, you know, that maybe you hadn't tried, it didn't look very attractive or something. And they would go, well, how do you know you haven't tried it? Could be the best thing you've ever tasted. So we just had to have one bite. And then once we had one bite, then we could exert our free will that we didn't like it. Okay, great. Thanks for trying. Maybe we want to revisit that down the road, you know, like, so for example, raw tomato and avocado when I was a kid, just, ugh. And now I can't get enough of it, you know? So it was just, being open to all possibilities was really the name of the game in my family. And we, you know, come from a very creative family. You know, we have literal rock stars and judges and, you know, big achieving family, but it's sort of no big deal at the same time, meaning you just do what you're passionate about, what you love, and you share it with the world. So from a really young age, I was taught that my voice mattered, and to put it out there, and that people wanted to hear what I had to say, being my parents, and then by extension, anybody that we chose to invite into the conversation. And I think it's just a really important message to share and to hold and to carry with you. So my upbringing in my childhood continues to resonate and play out in everything that I do.
This is so fascinating to me because one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and then I was like, nah, like I don't know, but I do think it speaks to what you just said. Well, first of all, before I ask the question, this other question is, so what did your dad do for work?
Yeah, so my dad worked for the airline, so he was a flight engineer. So he
Okay.
flew and was gone for days at a time, and then he went long haul when we moved to Singapore. He started with Qantas, which was back then it was called something else, but then it got absorbed, and then we went to Singapore, and he worked for Singapore Airlines, and so
So that
we
explains also
traveled a
some
lot.
of the travel. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes. And then my mum was a flight attendant for Qantas. That's how they met back in the day. But she had been a teacher prior to that.
Of
That's what
what?
she
What did she
did.
teach? What subject?
She taught primary school,
Oh,
and then she became a special needs teacher. So she became an integration specialist. And so I think that really informs a lot of what I do as well, in the sense of, I then volunteered, she was volunteering, sat on the, different charities and things. And so social service was a very big part of our family as well. And
yeah.
then I started volunteering myself. And then I worked for the government, for the Department of Human Services with intellectually disabled people, people with acquired brain injuries, etc. Worked in hospice, things like that. So that was a very big part of what our family did, and other members of my family as well. So yeah, that's where the flying comes into it. So my mum has also done a bunch of different things because she's constantly wanting to explore the next frontier. So I get that from her for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of the things when I first met you, and then I had we were on a Zoom catching up, and your mom came into the frame, and we were like chatting, and I was like, "But you're really close with your family," and I think
Yes,
something that is really beautiful, and I think a lot of people don't have this. Is first of all, it sounds like you still have a really healthy relationship with your folks, but
I
one of the
do.
things that you
Yes.
said that they really instilled in you. Because one of my next questions, well, into your creative work, it kind of is already leading there, is that they told you that A, you had a voice, B, that it was worthy of being heard, that you had something to say, and just that foundation, that really healthy kind of foundation to launch yourself from. Because, I remember meeting you and thinking, like, this is a really confident person. And I'm not saying you sometimes don't get, that you don't have fear. Sometimes you get
Oh, every
nervous.
day, every
Sure,
day,
sure, sure.
every day.
But you
Yeah.
present as like very confident. And I'm like, yeah, it's beautiful to grow up in a family where you're being told and that you actually like feel in the marrow of your bones that you are seen, that you are heard, that you're worthy, that that you matter, and that you're loved. And it sounds like, and I look, I'm not saying your family didn't have things. I don't know. I didn't grow up in your house, but it sounds like
Every
there's
every family does. Every
sure.
family does. But I will say that I really hit the jackpot with my
Ah,
parents. We
all
are a
right.
very close family, and we were the family that everybody else wanted to be around. They would tell us, and my friends wanted my parents as their parents. And, all my friends just adore my parents, and they're very much included in a lot. And, I'm close with my sister, and I just have one sister. So there's four of us. So we were a very tight knit group of four for sure.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah, I'm extremely fortunate, and I like my parents. I would choose them as friends.
And they're both still alive, yes?
Yes,
Yes. How
thankfully. And they're both in
lucky.
excellent health, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And that's why I chose to return to Australia for a while, after living in the United States for over 30 years, because my parents are with it and they're ambulant and they're still cognitively active and they're still curious and they're still up for things. And, while I'm single for the first time in my life at the moment, and I wanted to return while I didn't have a partner, didn't have to uproot their life and just spend this really precious time with them before getting the call from my sister, "Ooh, you better come home," you know?
Oh my
So, yeah,
gosh.
it's a really special time because they're in their 80s. So, yeah.
It's beautiful and it's rich. And it also just like, I just got like, oh, I wanted to just cry when you were talking about that. I think it's so beautiful that you're aware and awake enough that, because when we look at it, and you're like, okay, my parents are this age or whatever, meaning yours. And if you were living in LA or still living in the States, and you think, well, how often do I see them? And then you're like, well, if you only go home, let's just say you only went back to Australia once a year or twice a year, and they have like this much time. When you break it down like that, it would literally be like, I'm only going to see my parents like four more times or 6 more times. And when you think
Yeah.
about it like that, it's like, oh my God. So I just love that you're all there, like living your best life together. That makes me so happy.
It's really been a really fun, as you say, rich time. But I want to just pull up on something you said before, because it really went into my heart you present as a really confident person. And I do when I'm in an arena where I feel confident. So right now I just have to show up as me. So I am confident presenting as me.
Yes.
If I'm coaching, I feel very confident in what I'm doing. If I'm doing a voiceover, if I'm on stage, or, but as you know, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting in the presence of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we build a different relationship with it. So I am constantly in pursuit of refining my relationship with fear or self-doubt or whatever labels we want to put on it. And I certainly experience it on a daily basis. So, just for a listener, if you're thinking, gosh, she's balls to the wall, she thinks she can do anything. I am often in a fetal position. I'm often meditating. I'm often going, I'm a fraud. Oh, no one's going to want to hear that from me. I mean, I feel that just like everybody else, and then I pull out my bag of tools and I work through it, just like we all do.
Well, that was leading to my next question about you being an actor. Some people would say old school actress, whatever, but I say actor, right? But I remember
potato, actor, actress.
Right. So you have a podcast. It has to be me, which I was lucky enough to be on. We're going to talk about that. But
you were fabulous.
Thank you so much. I had great help with you as a fantastic interviewer. But I remember when I went and listened to your podcast, and I don't know if it was in the first or second episode, and this is all pointing back to the confidence question. You told this great story about, I don't know if you were 16, 17 or whatever, and there was some director on campus or something who saw you and thought you were beautiful or whatever and wanted to cast you. And there was this other girl, there was this whole situation. I know the story, but it kind of speaks to this because I think that's also something that I don't want to speak for you, but that was a really big lesson that you learned in that story.
It really was.
Would you want to tell a little
I
I
love that you remember that story within the context of what we're talking about, because it was a very, very pivotal moment in my life, because it was an example of me choosing to be crippled by fear and running with the narrative of I'm not enough, that I somehow have to be different to meet the moment. So I had been sitting on the benches outside of the theatre department, and I was talking with my TA and some other people about a play, and we were sort of just analysing, just having a really, yummy, delicious conversation about story. And this director was sitting there, and I actually didn't see him at first, very famous director. If I had seen him, oh gosh, I don't know what I would have done. But anyway, and he actually was just listening, and he was there sort of scouting for people for his next movie, as they did, because this was in LA. I was at UCLA. And he just came up to me and said, hi, I just was just listening to you. I was so on board with what you were saying and your analysis of that. And do you mind if we just chat for a little bit? So we had this fantastic conversation, and he said, I just have a feeling that you would be just really fantastic to work with, and I would really love you to audition, And it was the opportunity of a lifetime. And I just said, in the moment, if you can believe this, I still cannot believe I did this. I mean, it's just baffling to me. I could kick myself. I want to go back and wring this girl's neck, like literally, or love her, or say, just go for it. Come on, And I'd already had the big lead of the season as a freshman, and everybody else in the show was a senior and a graduate student. Like, I already had some stuff under my belt, that I was enough at this school, or in life, or had the talent or whatever. And I was getting the lead, it wasn't sort of an unknown sort of thing. And I just was completely terrified and just said, I just don't feel like I'm ready. And I just want to stay at school. I wanted to stay in that safe bubble where I was the big fish in the little pond, basically. I was terrified that I wouldn't meet the moment and I would humiliate myself. And he said, are you sure about that? And it was almost like, now that I think back, it was a bit of a test. In that moment, he went, no, you're actually not the girl that I thought you were. And he said it very politely, but now that I think about it, Oh God. Anyway, and so he walked away, and this other girl that I knew, she saw and heard all of this. And I had, beaten her for some roles, and not beaten her, I don't know if that's the
I
right
know what you
term, but,
mean. Mhm.
and she just walked up to him, balls to the wall, and said, I'd like to audition. And she looked pretty similar to me, and it was a movie that became a really big movie, a really big movie. And she got a role in that movie.
Wow.
And I don't begrudge that of her. Good for her, because she went, it has to be me. And she went for it, balls to the wall, and put her hat in the ring and gave it a go. And that was a very painful lesson, but not for her.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot, that what is that old adage of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take? And I may not have got that role or a role in that film, but now I'll never know. And I would rather know than not know. I would rather regret what I did as opposed to what I didn't do. So I did things very differently after that. So, we are the sum of our experiences. And, I love a quote, but, I love the Nelson Mandela quote, I never lose. I either win or I learn. So I didn't
Yes.
lose that day, but gosh, did I learn. And learning, is winning. But it was a painful lesson. But the great things, the great thing about the lessons that come wrapped in dog shit, so to speak, the really painful ones, is that we can't ignore them and we don't forget
Yes.
them. And they end up being our greatest teachers. So everything that happens serves us, as we know, but gosh, did that serve me. It really, really did. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big and powerful and painful in its own way lesson. And I think, what's beautiful about it, though, for me, is that I see it as kind of like one of those, you called it a pivotal moment, but it kind of lights that little fire under your ass, like never again,
Absolutely.
like never again, like I'm going to go
Mm.
after what I want. And you also said in there, you know, that girl not begrudging her and saying, because she said it has to be me, which means I can't skip over the fact that you just beautifully segued us into. And like I said, we're going to get into, because you have your own level of fame in so many different ways, which
Oh,
we're going to
gosh,
talk.
it's very generous of you. I don't know if I would view
Look,
it
and
that
don't
way,
be a
but yeah.
weirdo. Don't be a weirdo. We're going to talk about it. But you recently, last year, you started your podcast, It Has to Be Me podcast. And what do you, for people who maybe haven't listened to it yet, we're going to point them in the right direction. But like, what's the heartbeat of that? And like, why it has to be me? And where did the name come from? And what does it mean to you? Because I look at your podcast, just for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, maybe dear listener, you listened to my episode that I was lucky enough to be on. But I see your podcast as a really beautiful, like, accompaniment. I can't even say that word. Like, it's an extension of, I feel like, your programs, because it's so rich with resources and things that help people like live better, feel better, like with all different kinds, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, somatic, like there's so many great guests on. But tell me what inspired you like to do that, and what it has to be me means.
Yeah, I've wanted to do a podcast for many, many, many years, and I just didn't have time. And not because I chose that I didn't have time out of fear, because I think that often that's an excuse for I don't think I'm ready. I just was traveling the world. I was the spokesperson for KitchenAid. I was,
Yes.
consulting with companies. I was speaking at events all over the world. I was writing books for Random House, all the things, I had a full roster, and there's only so many hours in the day. And as you know, to do a podcast at a high level and really research your guests and be present and be ready to have the kinds of rich conversations you want to have with somebody. Somebody's got a book, I read all their books. If so, it requires a rigor. It requires a presence, and to do it at the level that I wanted to do it at, I just knew that I literally did not have the time.
Well, look, you don't do anything half-ass. I mean,
No,
that's
I really
that's
don't.
the thing.
I
Like
really don't.
you pour your heart into whatever you're doing. Because if it's not,
As do you, and that's why we get on so well. Why we met, it was like, oh, we're sisters from another mother. This is amazing. But you know that thing where it's like, so it has to be me for me means, when you just know in your gut, this is what I want to do. This is what I meant to do. This is what I have to do. And it doesn't matter how afraid you are. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You go and do it. That's what it has to be me means to me. And so when it was really inspired by the office hours for my 60-day reset in Skinny 60. So every Thursday, any member can come in and it's just a free for all, meaning anyone can ask me anything about anything. So it could be anything from, oh, I don't like broccoli, but I know I want to eat it. How do I make it taste delicious? To I can't get my kids to eat vegetables. To my husband and I want to eat different things. What do I do? To then it gets quite a bit deeper with other people of the motivation, the core beliefs, limiting beliefs that inform our food and lifestyle choices, our relationship with food, relationship to dieting, maybe not wanting to eat enough, maybe feeling like you need to starve yourself. I mean, it goes into, you've been on one. It can go to many, many places, which is what's so beautiful. And so the podcast was really inspired out of those office hours.
Right on.
Of what I realized was the through line for all of us is we know that the I'm not enough / I'm too much story. I used to think they were opposites. Now I realize it is the same story, just coming at self-doubt from a different angle and a manifestation. It's what holds us back from believing that we can meet the moment. From stepping into our it has to be me, claiming our it has to be me, going after it with the force of thunder, believing that we can have it actually, right? And so when I was thinking about the phrases, as you know, in business, I'm very, very strategic. And as a business mentor, I reverse engineer everything. So I'm very, very into research. I make data-driven decisions about everything in my life, except for feelings of love and things we can't quantify, But if it's a business decision, a health decision, I'm going to move, I'm going to apply for that job, I've got to look at all the data. And then my intuition kicks in. And that's what, I put the two things together. So when I was thinking about what I was going to call it, I went around and around and around, this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and months as I was mulling this over in my head. And then finally I got to a place where I went, what is the phrase where every single time I take action, what's the phrase that I hear in my head? And it has to be me. That's the phrase. So I went, oh, that's it. That's the anthem. And it was finding it has to be me was it has to be me moment, in the sense of the minute I went, yes, there was no turning back. And then when I got on board with podcast producers, they said, so the name, open to changing that? And I went, nope. I said, I'm open to anything else that you suggest, but for my podcast, this is the name. And I had this 3-hour think tank session with them, and 10 minutes into explaining it, they're like, oh God, we get it now. We so get it. That's the name. And then everybody was on board, and it's been really amazing. But because I was afraid at first that it has to be me. Anyone that saw it at face value would be thinking that it was just me waxing poetic about how fantastic I am. It has to be me. I'm amazing. Blah, 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 right? And that was a really deep core fear in me, particularly as a coach. You never want to make it about you. It's always got to be about how you can be in service of the other person. And it's not to say that I don't share personal anecdotes and stories where it's applicable. Just often, mainly the reason I'll do it is to show somebody I struggle with this too. Yes. I know that you're sitting with me as a facilitator and as a leader of this experience thinking she's so confident. I can't believe that she could ever feel fear. Oh, believe me, I do every single day, And I say this often to people when I'm in conversation with them. If we accept the premise that we're all failing all the time, meaning that in the moment we believe we can be doing it better. I just mean for the purposes of that conversation. In the beginning, it's a very inconvenient truth. It's very uncomfortable. And then when we realize that every other person on earth is having the same experience in a different way, then it becomes a liberating truth. And I actually start to laugh. when I realize that the person I'm talking to is feeling it too, their way. And I often say that to people, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that it's unfathomable to me that you're so confident that you could be feeling that too. I said, oh, believe me, I struggle with that too. And I use, you too, right? And we all do. That's why I continue to put tools in my toolbox and I keep using them so that I can show up like this today with you. And I'm going to give some of them to you right now, So I know that you're very much a coach of that ilk as well. We practice what we preach because you don't ever want to be a fraud. Like the F word, people think the scariest F word is fuck. The scariest F word for me is fraud. Right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I totally get it. And I think, when I was on your show and we kind of talked about this, it's like, me, like I said, there's a reason why like A Course in Miracles really spoke to me, and so much is about moving from fear to love. Because like I'm a person that spent a lot of my lifetime in fear, and still to this day. I think people often also read me as somebody who's like always wicked confident. And one of the things we talked about when I was on the show was like feeling safe enough. Right. I just have to be like, I just have to get over that lip and be like, look, we're going to do this thing. So we can either do it like terrified, or we can try to find some fun in it and just feels enough safety in my nervous system where we can like get out of that fight and flight experience. So, yeah, I mean, I do think it's really beautiful. And I've seen you in action coaching in your programs and stuff like that, which is kind of where I want to start to lean in, because I made that comment, like you're famous in your own way. Like people who don't know you were going to be like, what are you talking about? So when I read told people about your bio and who you are, like one of the first things is that you're an author and you've written 3 books. And not only did you write 3 books, like, man, these were like bing, 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 2014, 2015, 2016, like back to back to back to back. That is no joke, number one. And this is your first book right here. It's beautiful, right? The Blender Girl. I'm holding it up.
You.
Yep. And so this book, The Blender Girl.
Thank you.
So here's the thing, though. In your first book, in this one, The Blender Girl, you said, so the first book is The Blender Girl. The second one from 2015 is The Blender Girl Smoothies. And then the third one that came out is called The Perfect Blend. And like, I could spend just so much time talking about this. I'm going to try to not like drag it on. But here's the thing. In your first book, The Blender Girl, you have this great story in the intro where you say, like, I became the Blender Girl by accident. And you kind of take us, right? I mean, isn't that, I mean, so I can read your exact words to you, right? Like, this is what you said. Like, you're like, yep.
I love speaking to someone that's so detail orientated as I am, because you just don't forget anything. So it's fabulous. That is exactly what I wrote.
Yeah. And so, but it goes back though to when you were telling us about your childhood. And I said, did your childhood like influence the work you do now? And as a kid, like, I think, please forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, because I'm like, the little guys in my brain, it's like it's a little library up there, and I'm having them go through the Dewey Decimal System right now, pulling some things up. But I almost could have sworn that when you were a kid, your father called you Mouse.
Yes.
Okay, so like you loved
yes.
cheese or something as a kid, and then that all changed though, right? So Epstein-Barr, like you were diagnosed, and then it started this whole journey. And like you were like even a perfectionist around your food. Like you said something like, if I'm gonna heal myself even if it kills me, or something like that. It was wicked funny.
That is what I said.
Okay.
Yes.
So take us back to like, because look at you guys, just for 1 second, you might feel a little cringy saying this, but I want people to understand the scope of your influence. The Blender Girl had like millions. I'm not making that up, right? Like millions of like followers and like the whole thing.
Yes.
But it started out of your own desire to feel better in your body, like literally like walking around the world, feeling kind of like shit, feeling lethargic, all this stuff started when you were younger. And then like it took you on this whole journey, and then you become like this massive success of The Blender Girl, 3 books from Random House. It started like with the blog, blah, blah, but tell us that journey and like how we get to be the Blender Girl.
I know it's amazing. If you had said to me 15 years ago, you're going to become this this expert in blenders and write all these books about healthy living, I just would have gone, I'm sorry, are you talking to the same person? I mean, life takes you on a journey and you just go with it like water, you just go with the flow. That's what I meant by I became, it found me, but I also was looking for it at the same time. So yeah, I, grew up in a pretty conventional meat and three veg family. My mother cooked food from scratch. We didn't eat a lot of fast food. We had a lot of healthy food. So that was ingrained in me at a young age. But we enjoyed our food. I ate cakes and 2-minute noodles just like everybody else, if you know what I mean. And then when I was a teenager, I just became debilitated with extreme lethargy. And as someone who always had a lot of energy, this zest and enthusiasm and gusto for life. Yeah, right. Yeah. And it was really, really debilitating. And I did, I told this story, in the first episode of my podcast where my family is a family of singers and performers. And my favorite thing to do in the world was stand around the piano with all my relatives and belt out tunes. And this one day I just couldn't do it. I had to go and lie down and life was running away from me. And my mum came in and said, "What is wrong? Like, you love this." I said, "I know." And I just burst into tears. I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus, which is a similar disorder to chronic fatigue. It's debilitating. You just want to sleep all the time. And this was, I'm 52 now. So this was many, many years ago. And so my mother, to her credit, the doctor said, "There's just nothing you can do but just sleep." And my mum said, "Oh, no. We're proactive people. No. So she just left no stone unturned. I will thank her till my dying breath for this. She took me to a naturopath. He suggested that I change my diet to empower myself, my body to feel better. So suggested that I refrain from eating gluten and dairy, refined sugars, go into a really whole food, clean diet, look at my protein. I am not a celiac. I'm not dairy intolerant necessarily in that sense, lactose intolerant, let's say, but that's only one form of dairy intolerance. But I felt better within 48 hours. And then I just continued to feel better and better and better as I moved into a more nuanced place with what I was doing. And that really was the impetus into a revolution into the way that I ate. So then I became obsessed. I mean, obsessed. I was, we all know someone like this who finds the answer every 6 months and wants to recruit everybody that they know, So I became quite dogmatic and preachy. And oh my God, I was vegan, I was vegetarian, I was gluten-free, I was Pritikin, I was keto before it was a thing, I was grain-free, I was macrobiotic, I was macrobiotic for a number of years.
Me too.
Yeah, really beautiful. And then when I turned 18, the ripe old age of 18.
But there's a story with your dad, right? Where
we went to this really fancy restaurant we'd all been dreaming of going to, super expensive, blah, blah, blah. And then, the waiter comes, wants to tell us the specials. And I said, "Oh, look, thank you, but I can't eat this and I can't eat this." And my dad goes, can you just give us a minute? And my dad just said, "Okay, you're 18 now. So there's something I've been wanting to say to you for a long time, and I think you can finally handle it." He said, "We are exhausted. Watching you eat, watching you order, watching you deprive yourself, and watching you tell the waiter for 15 minutes all the things that you can't have. What about all the things that you can have? Because life and love and hope and joy is about what you add, not about what you take away." And he said, "Food is one of the great pleasures of life. It should be fun, don't you think? So let's try this again." And it was really hard to hear, but he was right. He was right. And again, it was another tent pole in my life that health is not about dogma. It's not about rigidity. The keys to health and happiness is about flexibility. You can be committed to your choices, but flexible with your approach. And so from that moment, I realized that all these different things that I was obsessively buying into, that was the answer. Now that was the answer. All of them had something to offer, but none of them was one size fits all. And as we age, our needs change, our hormones change, our activity levels change, medications we might be on, all these different things. So, of course, we have to be fluid with it. So, I was incredibly grateful that I learnt that from a very, very young age. So then, flash forward when I was living in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri, in a smaller city. And I was fortunate. I was married, to the love of my life, and we had a lot of money, and I didn't have to work, but I wanted to work. I'm a worker. But at that time, I didn't have my green card. I wasn't an American citizen. I couldn't legally work there. So I was flying back and forth until we were married, and I couldn't actually work. So when I was there, I was volunteering and being active, but, I wasn't working as much. I was doing voiceovers, remotely and things like that. But I didn't have a full-time job. And he said, why don't you start a blog?
This was your husband at the time.
My husband at the time, who was a brilliant, brilliant man, an entrepreneur, always an early adapter, or a forward thinker, a visionary. I mean, he really, really was an impresario in many, many respects. I learned a lot from him about business, for sure. I said, why don't you start a blog? And I said, excuse me? And he said, well, just sharing your journey with food. I went, I'm not a chef. What have I got to share? He goes, well, every time you've got people over for dinner, everybody asks what you made because it's so delicious. So just share your journey with food. Find a unique perspective, something that's not being done. And I went, oh. And so then I went into full research mode, and he helped me, and I was always using my blender for all these different things.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were trying all of those different diets, and you said you were getting a little dogmatic, and every 6 months it was like, now this, now this, now this, was it still in service to trying to feel better?
Yes.
Right. So that was the thing, though. It wasn't just like you became obsessive or obsessed about discovering things, learning things, trying things, but it was still in service to trying to feel better, because I think so many people.
Oh gosh, yes, no. I just wanted to have energy.
Yes.
I wanted to have energy because I was just so thirsty and wanted to do every single thing that I wanted to do.
Right.
So I still didn't have as much energy as I wanted to have.
I'm with you now. Okay.
Yeah.
So why,
thank you for asking me to clarify.
The search kind of continues. And so you're trying all these things. And so even when you say to I would say your sweetie at the time, I'm not whatever, but does some part of you get that you are really good at preparing food? Did it not clock to you how every time you had people over, they loved what you were making and your recipes, and they wanted to know what it was? Did you just not?
But I did. But you're right. I still thought, oh, it's in my little small circle of the world, my little small circle of friends. And, it wasn't until much later that I realized sometimes the best teacher for a third grader is a fourth grader. And we don't have to be the world's foremost authority on something for our voice to matter. And so in that moment, I wasn't embodying the lesson that I had learnt, way back when, what we talked about, and the lessons that I've been accumulating, that, if my friends were interested in this, odds are hundreds of thousands of other people would be too. And they were. So it was a real lesson. But thank you for clarifying, because it was born out of a real need to want to be the best version of myself, that I wanted to have energy. I wanted to really live life fully and take it by the balls and suck the marrow out of things. And I still was quite tired. And it was because I wasn't meeting my protein needs, and I hadn't found the Tess diet, just like you want to find the Karen diet, that I was looking to put myself into a box that I didn't fit in, which is, I think, the biggest mistake that most people make, that they think that there's one size fits all with diets, and there is no one diet that works for every single person. We all have we're bio-individual beings. And so once I embraced this concept of bio-individuality and really started to move with it, the more I realized, the blender is a metaphor for that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Yes, you anticipated my next question. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I was sitting there in my house looking at all these different ways I use my blender, and then I went, that is actually how I live my life and how I believe we all live our lives. We blend different notes and flavors, philosophies, cultures, experiences, lessons, hobbies, relationships, etc., to find our perfect blend for health and happiness. And that perfect blend changes, and it can change. And we want to keep giving ourselves permission for it to change. We're not chasing static goals. And the thing I also love about the blender is you can't screw it up because we're going to blend it anyway, right? And I think it really levels the playing field in the kitchen, that if you can read and you can pick things up and you can throw them in the blender, you can start cooking. And that's what it sort of democratizes things, and it makes healthy fast food possible. And so it's not just smoothies, it's not just soups. You don't coat check your teeth at the door with blender cuisine, as I like to call it. I'm using the blender for an element of the dish. So it might be the sauce that goes on something. I might be, smushing the burgers. I might be, there's all kinds of, full meals and snacks and appetizers and desserts and everything else, drinks, etc. So then, flash forward, I started this blog. And again, this is where the strategy came in. I literally, ready for this? I backdated my posts for a year. I did a year's 52 posts. I launched the blog with 52 posts because I didn't want to look like I only had one post, right? And I SEO'd the shit out of that website. I mean,
all right, so explain to the listeners who aren't business people, what does that mean? You SEO?
This is before the land of AI search and stuff. Like, it's changed dramatically, but I really optimized that website for internet search. So if somebody was searching for blender recipes or what to do with my Vitamix or what to do with this, I would pop up. And so I did, with Rob's help, did very well with that. And so very, very quickly, chow.com and CBS Interactive reached out to me, and it was sort of off to the races from there. They just said,
like, who's
how
this
do we
girl?
not know about you? And I literally said, because I've been blogging for a nanosecond. And she went, tell me about that. I said, well, I backdated my post because I didn't want to look like I had nothing to offer. And she goes, what? And she goes, oh, we've got to interview you about this. This is incredible, right? So I was just very honest I don't know any other way to be, but I was very honest. And I went and I did some videos with them. I took my Vitamix, and then Vitamix came to me and asked me to do all their videos for the Vitamix 750. We launched that with Jody Berg, the CEO of the company. And then that's where my work with companies started. And then I didn't realize that I had that ability to be strategic in that way. So that opened up that whole strategic part of me, where I didn't realize that that's what I was doing quite in that way.
Okay, Can I interrupt again? I'm being rude, I know, but
no, please interrupt me, because I can just sort of go on and on and on.
Yeah, but you keep using this word like strategic, and sometimes we look at that word and we think like what, you were being strategic, like you just wanted to whatever. But when you're using that word, like, what was going through your head? Because you're like, I started like sitting in my house and my sweetie saying, start a blog. But like all things Tess, you don't just write one. You write 52, one a week, and you dump it on the internet, which all of a sudden Google's like, woo, we can find this girl. So you get found, and you're in LA, yes, at this time?
No, I'm still in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, you're in Missouri. Okay.
Yes.
You're in Missouri. So somehow, like, you said chow or whatever, chow.com, CBS, they start to pick it up. And then Vitamix is like,
no, I went and did some videos. I flew to San Francisco and shot some videos, and they put them on their platform.
You must be like, your head must have been spinning, like, what is happening? But when my point is, when you say strategic, what was your end goal? Like, what were you strategizing towards in this strategic thinking that you were doing? Like, what did you have an idea or a dream or a vision?
Absolutely. So in the beginning, it was just to share my relationship with food and to do something meaningful, help people with their health, help people to cook delicious plant-based recipes and make vegetables taste delicious. And like anything that I do, then I have to do it at the highest level.
No.
That's just who I am. And I've learned to not apologize for that. I am an ambitious person. I want to always be doing things at the highest level. And so then yeah, I was going to turn that into a huge thing. And then I also decided I wanted to bring the blending and juicing space out of the 1970s and turn it into a really chic aspirational thing, and at that point, nobody was really doing anything beyond juices and smoothies with it. And I was using it for compost and cleaning products and burgers and all these other things. And so I kind of really, really wanted to revolutionize the space. And we did. It was very exciting. And so, I then had a lot of opportunities. It was really, really a fun time. And then I got to, work with the designers and engineers on blenders. And it was really, really cool, because then I bought pretty much every blender that was sold on earth, because I wanted to test all my recipes on a bunch of different blenders, not just a $700 blender. I wanted to do it in a $70 blender, so that anybody could make these recipes on any budget and any lifestyle, So I test my recipes at least 50 times before they go into my books, because they have to work for anybody with any kind of blender, so in any situation. So I have a very rigorous recipe development process. So, when you use them all, you start to really notice the difference between different machines. And that's when that part of my life started to open up, because I was sort of unofficially giving feedback to companies. And then they started coming to me going, our engineer wants to speak to you. Would that be all right? Because they're just really interested in that feedback, because it's pretty bang on. And that's when when you said, if you told me that companies were going to pay me an insane amount of money to consult about developing product, I would have just laughed, but what do we get better at? What we practice. And so I just was blending, 100 times a day when I was developing these books and these recipes for the blog and recipes for companies and whatever. So I was using a lot of different machines a lot. And so it became very clear to me what made a good blender and what did not make a good blender, and so I sort of came up with my own methodology around that. I was very much self-taught, but the feedback was useful, thankfully, and a bunch of different companies have used it, which is amazing.
What I think is incredible is I can look back at your childhood and I can see all the pieces, all the
Yeah.
pieces. A normal average person who is, first of all, just writing a blog at home is not, most writers I know are like, don't put a fucking camera near me. I don't want to do video. A lot of podcasters I know are like, don't turn on a camera. I'm not posting this to YouTube. Most writers are like, oh, I got to take a picture for my author picture at the back jacket. Like, eh. But when these people came knocking, first of all, you're an actress. They're like, make a video. You're like, sure. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like
look, I was very, very fortunate. You're right.
you had
Because
these skill sets in place, which is beautiful. It was like your life was preparing you for this moment. It was like the
Yes.
divine had dropped
Yes.
these breadcrumbs that, like, when the time came, and also by
Yes.
virtue of you and your own hard work ethic and who you are, and the fact that you're a bright light and you're, first of all, easy on the eyes, easy to look at.
Oh, you're
Easy
so
to look
kind.
at, great to listen to. Great. I mean, you're a voiceover actor. For people who don't know, that you want to tell a little people what that act. I know most people do know, but for people who might not know, you also do that work, which is, I don't want to speak for you. So you also.
No, it's okay. No, you're right. At that point, I had been the voice of, Clairol, and I'd done ads for Target and Motorola, huge companies. I'd done thousands of commercials. And so, voicing commercials, later on, have voiced characters in video games and short form narration, long form narration, audiobooks, all kinds of stuff. So I was very comfortable on camera and very comfortable public speaking. And, that's, most people, that they're more afraid of that than death,
Yes.
So but I wasn't a writer. I didn't consider myself to be a writer. Like we are all writers, by the way. We're all
Sure.
writing emails and writing notes to ourselves and all the things, but I hadn't done any real formal writing at that point, but everything else I had done at a high level. So I was very, very fortunate that I had the whole package, so to speak, which is how people were phrasing it when they were coming to me, that I had a skill set that I could leverage to be the spokesperson for KitchenAid, to, do the videos for Vitamix, to do videos for these other companies, to work with, different hotel chains and restaurant chains and all the companies that I've worked with now. It did serve me very well. I was able to bring all of my talents and skills together in service of this, because we are in, an age where video is the king of content, so I was extremely fortunate that I already had that skill.
Oh my God. I mean, there's so much. Like I feel like I'm like, and I know we have a hard stop. And so I want to definitely talk about your programs, but I can't pass it by because hello, just curious person. And when somebody drops breadcrumbs in a conversation, my brain's kind of like putting the pieces together. So you mentioned Rob, right? You mentioned
Mm.
your sweetie who was instrumental in helping you kind of kick off this thing. And you also mentioned that he was an entrepreneur and that he was brilliant. He was this brilliant man. And I seem to remember a story of like how you guys first met. Like, didn't you meet a friend and then the friend called her brother and said, I met the woman you're going to
It
marry
was
or
his
something like that?
sister.
His sister.
It was
Oh,
his
yeah. I mean,
sister.
yeah, he called it that, right. The sis, your friend, you met a friend
Yes.
and that friend was the sister to your future husband.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned, I'm single for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
So Rob and you, that's no longer like, can you tell, like, it's
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
what did he
oh
get to
gosh.
see you become really famous and kick
You
things
know,
off?
I don't know. I don't know if he ever really knew about that because I had not, he has passed away now. But I don't know if he ever saw my books. I would imagine that he did, but I don't know. We didn't have I didn't have hadn't had any contact with him for 15 years prior to him dying. But no, he was an alcoholic, he was a drug addict, he was an addict of every description. And he had a troubled childhood. He was running away, from a lot of things and not being honest about what he wanted. And yeah, he overdosed, and there were, he was in and out of treatment centers. It was really, really traumatic, and he was in a lot of pain. And oh, I would have stayed with that and run that marathon with him, but he just didn't want to be married, didn't want to be married to me. And, basically came to me and told me that. And I just didn't want to let it go. And I was pushing and pushing. We're meant to be together, and finally it just wasn't any use. So I was devastated, utterly heartbroken. Um, the most pain I've ever been in my entire life.
Oh,
And that
sad.
story was gut wrenching. And that's why I moved out to LA. And because I thought, you know what, I love LA. I love America. I've spent more of my life here, more of my life in America than I have anywhere else at this point in my life. But back then I went, you know what? I didn't get anything from this but a broken heart and a lot of lessons. I'm taking this for a spin. I'm not ready to return to Australia. So I decided, this is the land of opportunity and entertainment and story and all the things. And I'm so glad that I stayed because it was extraordinary. But that experience was the making of me in so many ways. And I think for the rest of my life, he will be, and that story, that chapter of my life will be one of my greatest teachers, if not the greatest teacher.
It's such a tender thing. And
Yeah.
it's
And
such a,
still is and always will be.
yeah. I mean, it was a beautiful beginning. It was like kismet. It was like divinely,
Yeah, we have the
guided.
same we have the same birthday. It's
Come on.
so
See,
crazy.
it's like I try to picture him in my head. Was he also really was he nice to look at? Was he a good looking,
He was
gorgeous?
gorgeous. He
All
was
right.
gorgeous, and he was sweet, and he was kind, and he was gentle. He was brilliant. He
And he
really was
struggled.
brilliant.
And he
And he was
struggled.
so troubled all at the same time. All at the same time.
And what age were you guys when you were together, when you were partners?
Yeah, I was 30. I was 30. And then when we separated, I was 37. Yeah. But
Oh,
we had been friends for 7 years prior to that. So I
sure.
knew him,
Yeah, the phone calls,
I
oh,
knew
like
him, really I knew him since I was 22. Yeah.
so
We
when
fell we
that
fell in love over the phone. We spoke on
right.
the phone for 7 years.
Okay. And then you
Yeah.
finally met in person.
In
Because you did
Hawaii. He said, "Let's meet halfway. Let's just meet halfway and just see what this is." And it was an it has to be me moment. I didn't even hesitate. Like my friends were like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I went, "Yeah, I'm really sure because otherwise I'll never know." And when I saw him and I met him and we were together in person, it was just electric. Like it was like my body, my soul belonged to him. And he felt the same way. And it was just, I have to be with him no matter what it costs me, no matter what. I mean, I literally gave up so many things in my life to be with him. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it, because even though I missed out on a lot of very big opportunities in my career, the lessons that I got, and I wouldn't be where I am today because of it. And this was clearly the path that I was meant to be on in this life. And I just trust it. And like I said, it brought me to this moment. And I will say, as a coach, because you and I've spoken about this, we're both very, very intuitive. So that intuition in me, those intuitive hits that I get when I'm coaching people, they're getting stronger and stronger. And I really truly believe that it was that chapter that really was the beginning of me honing those skills, even though I wasn't really listening to them as much as I should have been back then. Because I was just in so much pain, and I wanted to see what I wanted to see, as we all do when we're in pain. But when I'm coaching somebody else, you can see it a lot more clearly when you're not inside of it, And I believe that I'm able to be present with people and meet them with compassion, because I truly understand what it's like to be on your knees and want to die. And prior to that experience, I would say I had a pretty charmed life. I had an amazing family. There wasn't a lot of tragedy in our lives, unlike you, Karen. You met that tragedy very early on in your life. I did not. And so I could imagine. I had a lot of empathy, and my imagination was very powerful as an actor. I could imagine what it felt like to have a broken heart, but I'd never had one. And so now I have a visceral relationship with that pain. And, addiction, when you put alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, and all these addictions on top of it, they're all diseases of denial. And going to Al-Anon was really life-changing for me, because, right?
Too.
Yeah.
Me
right.
too.
Because, before you go, you think the addict's the one with the problem. I can fix things. I've got my shit together, and they're a hot mess. That's kind of, seriously, I was very arrogant. That's how I felt. Oh, poor Rob, he's got all these problems. Then you go to Al-Anon and you realize you're just as sick as the addict. You've got a different kind of addiction. You've got a different kind of addiction and a different kind of, you're playing into the codependence in a different way. So being in the program was a huge series of It Has to Be Me's as well, and I credit that every day. I still have hope for today, courage for today by my bed, and they're beautiful reminders, and the serenity prayer, is a beautiful way to move through the world as well. But, and then another phrase that I think about from Al-Anon is, worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but in the end gets you nowhere. And I was a chronic worrier, and now I'm not, because I want to put my energy into manifesting and making the things that I want come into fruition, not spending my time feeding what I don't want to happen. And so, yeah, it was a beautiful gift in my life that came accompanied with a lot of pain.
Yes.
And now it's just incredibly liberating, and it carries me. It carries me with everything I do.
First of all, I'm so sorry to hear that he's no longer with us. And
yeah, he killed himself. He finally killed himself. He tried many, many times before we were together, while we were together, and then he finally did it. And, I'm just grateful that on my watch, so to speak, I was able to save his life. I mean, what a privilege to be able to save a human being's life. I had to wade through water. I almost drowned. I was in the ambulance with him. He died 3 times on the way to the hospital. I watched them intubate him and cut his clothes off. I mean, it was just harrowing. And then he was in intensive care. It was really full on. And then he finally
survived that. And then it was after you were divorced, or after you were split up.
After we were divorced. Yeah. Many, many years later, by the way, many years later. So, yeah. 3 years ago, he killed himself.
Oh, just 3 years ago?
Yes.
Oh my
terrible.
God.
And I knew, like I felt it. We were that connected. So yeah. And then my friend called, and the minute I picked up the phone, I knew.
Tess.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what that's like with your mother, it's.
Loss and pain of that magnitude, it totally brings you to your knees. And I also think it can be, when I always say when and if it's not, I can't speak for other people. That's their journey. But for me, it can be an incredible doorway as well it can open a door to a
Oh,
different
absolutely.
way
Many
of
doors. Many
living and way
doors.
being and
Yeah.
thinking. And it clearly has for you. And I think that like it's so interesting, right? I sometimes think this about coaches, like one of the things I love Mr. Rogers, Mr. Fred Rogers. I think I've told you that
Yeah.
before. And there's that great quote from his mom, like when scary things happen or big things, traumatic things happen in the world, look for the helpers. There'll always be helpers. And I often
Yes.
think that coaches are just like, I jokingly say it, like, but we're like kind of codependent helpers. Like we love to help. Like we love to fucking help. You got a problem? Like Problem Solvers Anonymous. I should go to a Problem Solvers Anonymous because if there's a problem, I'm there. Like I'm in. I'm not saying
Oh,
drama. I'm not into drama, but I love solving a good problem, right? You got a thing, let me help you, right? Okay. Which leads us kind of into um, you know, Blender Girl, all this stuff, fame, Vitamix, this, that. You're still doing some acting, you're doing all these beautiful things. And then, like, what happens inside of you when you go from talking to the masses on mass scale with like books and a blog and the videos and the representing and the speaking on stages and I'm doing all this stuff to going like, I want to get intimate with people. Like, I want to get in a program, in a group where there's like people can talk to me, people can talk to my dietitians. Because again, you don't do anything half-ass. And I think so many programs, right? There's nutritional coaches and whatever, but dietitians is a whole other level. So you created these programs to help people. And I don't want to speak. I was lucky enough to go through one of your programs because, as we've talked about it. I never like to really talk about a thing or promote a thing or share a thing unless I've had the experience
Oh,
myself.
I'm the same way.
I
I'm
want,
exactly the same way. I have so much respect for you in that regard because I'm exactly the same way. You
yeah.
cannot
So,
speak about something with any kind of authority if you haven't experienced it.
yeah. And I want to know, like, what's it like to be in that face group? What's it like? And I can just say, and I can
Totally.
share my own thoughts about, I can share, like, I can talk about you to your face in a few minutes. But like what happens when you go from this massive success of the 3 books and all the things? Like what does something shift inside of you or does something where or is it like again your brilliant strategic business mind, like how do we get to the skinny 60? And caveat, I got to put
Yeah.
a little thing, please talk about that name because I know people like will hear skinny and go like wait, what's that about?
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
we
No,
talk about
thank you
all
for
of
that
this?
opportunity. Yeah. Yeah. No, so you know, I was incredibly fortunate that my books were very, very successful and they've sold hundreds of thousands of copies. And I went on international book tours and I met thousands and thousands of people, which was such a joy because I actually prefer one-to-one or very small groups. I love speaking to huge crowds and thousands of people, but I really, really love to meet people one-on-one and hear their story and connect with them heart to heart and really get a sense of things. So it was a great opportunity. Williams Sonoma made my book their featured book for May and Mother's Day, and every store in the country cooked their way through my book. And I had a lot of other brand partners and lots of opportunities to meet people around the world. And everybody loved the recipes. They were so excited about it. They were making the food. I did a lot of events where I was cooking with people and we were tasting the food and I was teaching people how to tweak things and make it their own and, riff off of recipes. And that was really fun. And, in the Blender Girl book specifically, there's a big, narrative section where I go over all the tent poles of health and nutrition, what I believe are the most important
I was
things
going
to
to
take
ask you
care of.
that. Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
how it feeds into the philosophy behind the book and how I develop recipes and why I include certain ingredients and not other ingredients and et cetera. And that is developed beyond the first book as well, by the way, as we learn more about ingredients, et cetera. So as I was meeting all these people, the same things kept coming up was that people wanted more guidance and they wanted expert guidance, that the recipes weren't enough. It was a huge piece of it to be able to eat delicious food and get excited about eating vegetables, but they needed more guidance about these other aspects of their health. And it needed to be very tailored and personalized because there isn't just one blanket way, as we were saying. And so whilst I have studied health and nutrition, I'm a huge fact finder. I know a lot about this. I don't have a medical license. In a previous, life, I could have been a dietitian or a doctor. I was thinking about being a doctor for a little bit, but I always just wanted to be part of story. I wanted to be on the stage. I wanted to be, I wanted to be doing all these things and you can't do everything. So I didn't go and do that. So it was very, very important to me that if I was going to create programs, people were going to be under the care of people with medical licenses. There's just so many influencers. People on Instagram, people that have a lot of followers. And even though, I have, we've got almost 2 million followers, in social media, particularly on Facebook, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. You could have one viral post and, a celebrity talks about you or a media outlet talks about you, and then all of a sudden you've got all these followers, That was certainly the case for me. I've spoken to Google and Facebook and been at all these big events, and I had all these strategic partners, and that's how I grew my following in addition to being on these tours, But okay, that doesn't mean I'm qualified to tell you about your health. A medical practitioner is qualified to do that. And dietitians are the medical practitioners that eat, sleep, and breathe how to use food as a functional tool for better health.
Like medicine, like food is medicine.
Exactly. And just like a cardiologist is who you're going to go to for your heart, an endocrinologist is who you're going to go to if you have diabetes, etc. So they've all got their different specialties, but because we're all eating multiple times a day, the average medical practitioner gets 3 hours or half a day at the most of nutrition training in their entire medical career, unless they go and actively seek out further training. So they don't really understand the nuances of how to use food. They know the basics, but they don't know anything beyond that. Whereas dietitians go into specialties. You have dietitians that specialize in oncology and breast cancer. You've got people that specialize in diabetes, people that specialize in digestive health. So that was really important to me. So everything had to be based in science. I'm a very, very science-driven person. And if it's not undeniable, indisputable science, I'm not interested in it. So it has to be that way. So when it came time to develop the Skinny 60 and the 60-day reset, we had to have dietitians facilitating that program. So I really stay in my lane. I help people make it delicious. I help it make it work in their lifestyle. I work on the mindset piece of it. That's my specialty. And then all the nutrition education and guidance comes from medical practitioners. So when you put those different elements together, that's where the magic happens. So when it came time to think about it, it's a very methodical, strategic way why it's 60 days, because it takes, that long to really implement different strategies and make them start to become habits. You're also going to go through 2 hormonal cycles, because that inextricably affects your metabolism, your metabolic function, your blood sugar, all the things. And then a digestive reset really takes that much time and more for some people. So we need that amount of time strategically to really make a difference. And then the skinny part of it, Skinny 60, we're all so obsessed about our weight and wanting to be thin and skinny and beautiful. We're brainwashed into thinking the only way that we can do that is to deprive ourselves, to starve ourselves, to diet, to be thin and beautiful. You can't have a fuller figure. Weight is only one measure of health, and I would argue the least reliable indicator of health. So we're wanting to really re-educate people on our relationship to skinny, our relationship to weight, and that we're looking at your blood sugar, your sleep and energy, your bowel movements, the inflammation markers in your body, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your cholesterol, etc. There is your mood stability, whether your hormones are optimized. There's so many other markers of better health that are more important. It doesn't mean that we don't want to be a healthy weight. I'm not discounting that, but we're not leading with that. And so, in other circles, skinny is another term for getting the information,
That's
getting
how
the
I think of
skinny
it,
on
yes.
Absolutely, getting the skinny on something. So for me, it was like, we want to help people get the skinny on how their body can function in an optimal level at this chapter in their life, at this age, because what's going to work for you at 40 is different than when you're 70. So we're wanting to work with every single person on a bio-individual personal level. It's a very, very, very personal program. That's why it's not a self-guided program. We have to get in there with every person. So everybody gets a questionnaire, very detailed. We give them a very, very detailed response on how to make our program work for them. And then we got to keep tweaking and working with each person to make sure that they're going to find the Karen way of doing, using our bag of tools. Because really it's just a bag of tools. We're not pushing any one diet. So we've got vegans, vegetarians, pescatarians, omnivores, whatever you choose to do. That's your choice. But everybody should be plant-based, meaning our diet is based in plants, and then we supplement with other quality foods of our choice. And so that's really where we're coming at it, is wanting to help people put the different pieces of the puzzle together, pieces of the pie. Everybody's got a different way of saying that, but
Oh,
and that takes training, and it takes help. We can't do it on our own, because we're not medical practitioners, most of us. And even, we have a lot of doctors and a lot of medical practitioners that take our program as participants, and that, you can't diagnose yourself.
yes.
So yeah, it's a really exhilarating process, is the word that I would choose to use, because it's really fun to get in there and figure out what's going to be the things that move the needle for every person.
Okay, so let me ask a follow-up question. So somebody who's listening to this and they're like, okay, Tess is amazing. I love her energy. She has these programs. Can we kind of just get into the nitty-gritty a little bit about it? Like, so ideally, or not even ideally, like somebody might not have Epstein-Barr or the whatever, but it's somebody who's like, I've been feeling like not that great, not feeling like myself, the menopause middle, we call it, right? I'm getting a belly. I'm like perimenopause. What are these hot flashes, right? All these things that are like going on. So I have just a very specific questions, because I know we only have like 10 minutes, and I want to make sure somebody who's listening to this can identify if something working with you is going to be helpful to them. Do men and women do the program?
Yes.
So the 60-day reset is the one that's coming up. I don't know when people are going to listen to this, but I know in January 2026, you have a new 60-day session coming up, correct?
Yeah, we lead it 4 times a year. So,
Okay.
and maybe at some point we might lead it more, but at the moment we lead it 4 times a year.
Okay, so you have one coming up in January. So somebody's listening to this, and is there kind of like, how do I say this? Is there certain groups of people that tend to want to take this program, or why do people come and take the 60-day reset? Like, what's usually going on with them? Like, what part of their
Oh
health?
gosh,
Because,
it's so many different people from so many different walks of life. So our main demographic is women over 40,
okay,
women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. But we have helped people in their 20s and 30s. We do have men doing the program, but it's primarily women.
okay,
But a lot of husbands do it with their partners, because
they
you're cooking the
benefit
same
from
food, you're
it.
eating the same food, yeah, and they get the benefit, which is great. We do have a lot of siblings, a lot of co-workers, a lot of husbands and wives, or partners,
Okay.
wives and wives, husbands and husbands, whatever. We have a lot of that going on. But it's people that just want to feel better. So it's people that have low energy, their hormones are all out of whack. They've got really chronic menopause symptoms. They're not sleeping through the night. They can't lose weight no matter what they've been doing. A lot of doctors and practitioners will send people because their A1Cs, yet they're pre-diabetic or they're already diabetic. They've got high blood pressure and cholesterol. They need to regulate all their numbers. And so
like
people are
all
able
the things that come with having a body and
pretty
operating
much,
a body.
yeah. People that are constipated, people that have diarrhea, people that have digestive health issues. We've got a
IBS,
lot of
all
people
that
that come in
stuff.
with Hashimoto's, Graves, thyroid disease, fatty liver. I mean, look, if you've got any kind of health issue, or you're just not feeling as good as you want to feel, or you just want to feel better, we do have people that come in like, I don't really have any health issues, but I don't want to get any. We've got a family history of XYZ, and I don't want to get it. I want to be proactive. And I mean, that's amazing too. So, people are able to regulate their numbers in 60 days. It's quite remarkable. So we're really big on blood work. If you don't have to do it, but we do recommend you get that data and have blood taken, within 6 months of starting the program. And then you get it taken 3 months, later. And the results are dramatic. The blood is the truth serum of the body. It doesn't lie. You can't lie. You can't argue with those results. So it's really extraordinary what happens when you start to eat strategically for your body. Meaning what's going to work for you is slightly different than what's going to work for me, so we have the same general principles, but how you would implement it would be different.
And
so
adjust and blend in the different approaches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can they kind of expect? Like, I know it's a 60-day program. I can just say from going through it, you guys, the amount of love and care that I know you have poured, and I'm not just saying this, those daily emails alone, like, again, because I look at everything as, yes, somebody who's going through the program and experiencing it, but my other part of my brain is like out here watching and going like, oh my God, just as a coach, a fellow coach and a business owner and whatever, the amount of time, the amount of attention you had to pay to really understand, oh, day 3, they're starting to get nervous. Day 10, this is what's going on inside them. Day 14. And each day they're getting these, it's like literally not only are you holding their hand and meeting them each day with an email over those 60 days, then there's like what? The weekly calls with you, the group calls where they can ask questions. So can you just kind of tell them like what they might experience in the program so they can envision themselves if it's a good fit for them?
Yeah. And look, anyone that has any questions can always get on a 15-minute call with me. You can book that through the website. Because you do want to make sure if you're going to spend 60 days on something, it's not just a financial commitment, it's an energetic heart song commitment.
Yes.
And people have been so burnt by so many things. And then you start to think that nothing's going to work. And you don't want to spend time and money on something that's not going to work. So you want to know it's the right fit, because you want to be excited about being there. It's a lot of hand holding. It's very personal. So you come in, there's a live prep week where we have 3 live video calls, and everybody says they feel so much better after those calls, which is why we add that prep week. And then we start day 1 a week later, and then we all go through the program. Everybody in the world goes through it at the same time for 60 days. You get a daily email, and after having done this for 6 years now, this particular program, we just know what the trajectory looks like for the average person. So those daily emails are just their motivation, it's things you want to be looking at, and those can be really helpful. And then we have 2 live video calls, one with the dietitian every week. It's a Q&A. We cover a different part of the program. It's a nutrition education, and then anybody can be on Zoom and ask any questions about anything. So it's a really great opportunity to speak to a dietitian face to face and ask any questions you might have. There's also unlimited email support. So you can email our team at any time and ask questions about anything. Then there's the Facebook group where you can also interact. Then my office hours is that open, call that lasts for several hours every week where anyone can come in at any time, and you can watch the recordings if you can't join live.
But it's how they can get their personal questions answered. Like Tess,
always. You have to be able to do that. You have to be able. So everyone gets a questionnaire at the beginning of the program. You do some evaluations. So we can really help you customize it. And then we supply meal plans and hundreds of recipes, but you don't have to follow them. You can eat out and travel. You can cook one meal and eat it with your family. That's why it has to happen live too, because everyone's in a different situation. Well, I've got my dream trip to Paris for a week. Can I do that? Yep, you can. Let me show you how you can do it, And it's all about balance. We eat out a lot. Great. Like we've had people that haven't made one single recipe. And like we've got people that they're doing kitchen renovations, and they just stop off at the grocery store on the way home and pick up food at their favorite restaurants. And we can help people. Okay, what do you like to eat? Where do you like to eat? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I can do this at Golden Corral to Marie Callender's to Chipotle, So, this can be done. So it's just figuring it out. And also the personalities of each person. Everybody learns differently. Everybody's got slightly different obstacles, things they're dealing with. You might be caring for elderly parents. You might have teenage children who are picky eaters. You might have, athlete, 18-year-olds that need a lot of sustenance. There's just so many different situations. Yes. And so that's why it has to happen live as well. So it's very customized. But that's what's fun about it. My dietitians and I, we always love it when we get a question we haven't been asked before. We're like, yeah, let's get into this, because it's just so interesting to work through that with people.
Well, I can feel your passion for it. And I have, like I said, I went through it. I've been in the groups. I've seen you on the calls, and like the variety of questions, I'm like, and man, you can just answer them. And what I love too is you're like, if you don't know an answer, you're like, we're going to find out, and we're going to come back, and we're going to be able to help you. And,
and if we've got to bring another expert, we will.
Yeah.
So, that's what's great about being connected to practitioners at the highest level. Like Megan, our lead dietitian, she's the director of health communications at the Celiac Disease Foundation. And they're using, the study into celiac disease to study all other autoimmune conditions, because it's the only autoimmune condition where we know the trigger, gluten, so she's on the forefront of all of that research, and she's at gastroenterology conferences all the time, so we've just got a lot of people that are really on the forefront of what's coming out right now. We also update our website every single December to make sure it's in line with global health recommendations and the latest science and research. So it's very much a living, breathing website. We've got to make sure that we're giving people the most up-to-date information. So that's fun too. Science is fun.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. And it sounds like it's totally like the opposite of a diet, like that diet culture. It feels like,
we don't want to be dieting.
you're like not a fan of diets.
Not a fan, not a fan. I mean, I love to eat and I love to eat a lot. And that, that is the biggest thing that we find is most women in particular are undernourishing themselves. They're actually not eating enough, and that gets in the way of better thyroid function and better metabolic function. And so then you can't maintain a healthy weight or lose weight when you're not optimizing your body function. So it's, look, if I had $1 for every person that says to me, I'm losing weight easily, eating more food than I've ever eaten in my life before, I can't believe this. And I'm like, isn't it awesome? Welcome to the promised land, my friend.
And all those questions that you have and get so confused by, because like you said, the influences and the internet, it's like, why is the gut microbiome so important? Why is gut health so important? Am I eating enough protein? What am I supposed to be doing? Now I'm in menopause. Like, what? Like, you're like a one-stop shop. Like, people can come in, get the support they need, like learn like that's the exciting thing too. It's like so many programs. One of the things that makes your program so different is that it is so individualized. A lot of people other programs just kind of dump like pray and spray, you know what I mean? Spray and pray and like hope you can figure it out. But there's so much like individualized and from experts, like true experts, not just like, oh, my sister went through the nutritional coaching program over the weekend, It's like, and I think the other thing too is that first of all, you guys, come on, you can't be around Tess and not have a good time. But like you're making healthy choices and you're making it sustainable, and wicked important, you're making it fun.
Oh, it has to be fun and it has to be sustainable. Otherwise, healthy habits don't stick.
Okay.
You got to want to keep doing it. And it doesn't mean we do it every minute of the day. That's the other really important thing. Our superpower is our Achilles heel when not held in balance. We don't want to be living in extremes. We're all going to eat the potato chips or the donut or the whatever your lovely, yummy food of choice is, comfort food of choice is. We just don't do it every day.
Yes.
So it's about finding a place for all of it. And I don't believe in saying, I can't eat that. Unless you're anaphylactically allergic to it or something, then for sure, right? No, please don't eat it. But most people, we don't want to be feeling guilt about and shame about food. I choose to just not feel that way. And I encourage everybody else to feel, okay, I ate it. So what'd you learn? What'd you learn? That's it. Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Great. So next choice, we get to make a different decision, and whatever. And sometimes we eat the donut and was it delicious? Did you laugh with your friend? Did you make a happy memory? Then awesome. That's a great reason to eat the donut.
I'm so lucky that here in New Hampshire, we have an incredible bakery that makes vegan donuts that you just can't even. You just can't even. If you ever come here, we will go to Lovebird Donuts. It's
deal. You're on.
All right. I know you got to go, but 2 super fast questions. If somebody is like interested and they're like, I want to learn more, all your ways to find you are going to be in the show notes and all that. You can we can rattle them off too here if you want to. But my question is, if somebody like wants to start something, they don't want to wait till January, they're not ready maybe to do 60 days. Don't you have like a 7-day program where they can get their feet wet?
Yes.
And test something?
Yeah. We've got a 7-day kickstart, which is kind of a 1-week taste of the program.
Yes.
So a lot of people do that. And I do guided versions of that too. So periodically throughout the year where you can come in and actually get coached with me for a week. And that has 3 live video calls as well. So a lot of people do that because it's quite extraordinary what can happen in a week, which is unbelievable, I know. But then you feel it in your body. Like there's one thing to know it intellectually and kind of buy into the science of it, or I understand the gut health piece. I understand needing the protein, but regulating my blood sugar, etc. But then when you feel it in your body, you can't deny that. You can't get away from that. Like, oh my God, I'm all of a sudden sleeping through the night when I haven't for many, many years. I've all of a sudden lost a few pounds when I didn't think that was possible. I think that's what holds a lot of people back is this, oh, I've just got one of those bodies where I just can't lose weight at this age. Or
they're special body. Yeah.
Right. I'm 70 and I'm always going to have to get up multiple times to pee. We've got women in their 70s who are sleeping through the night for the first time in their lives, right? So these myths that we hold on to just don't have to be true. You know,
Yes.
there's many things we can do, and we are in control of how our body feels. I know that if you've got diseases and disorders and you're born with things that you've got to deal with that, but you can improve how you feel and often eradicate things. You know, people that have had acid reflux for years or constipated their entire lives, all of a sudden going to the bathroom several times a day or at least once a day, no acid reflux anymore, or whatever it might be. Food is powerful and strategic nutrition is powerful. And there's a huge difference between healthy eating, just eating all the things on the healthy foods list, and being strategic, meaning eating foods in a way that's right for your body. And that there's a world of difference. And when you start eating strategically for your body and your needs, your body starts responding, and it is spectacular. And that is why we do everything live, so that we can help you figure that out. Now, some people, they start flying in the first week. Other people, we got to do a bit of trial and error and back and forth and help figuring it out. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, we find, you know, the pieces, and it's quite exhilarating. So yeah.
Okay. And I know somebody out there who's listening, who's an athlete, is saying, can she help me as an athlete as well?
Oh, of course, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, no, I mean, look, that is a thing. I mean, we spoke to you about this, didn't we, Karen? Is that a lot of athletes, they're really, really motivated and they've got their routines down, but they may not be nourishing themselves for each particular workout, because the way that you would choose to nourish yourself for a 10-mile bike ride is very different than a Pilates session or a swim session. And then what you eat after the workout, and then what you eat during the week when you're not working out. You know, we all think that the strength happens during the workout. We're actually tearing the muscles down, and the regeneration and the strength building happens after the workout. So we just feel, you know, we find that a lot of athletes just aren't fueling and nourishing their bodies adequately in order to support all the wonderful work that they're doing, you know, from
I
working out. So
100%
yeah,
agree.
we have a lot of triathletes and athletes and people, you know, we have people of all walks of life. So again, that's why it has to be tailored to each person, because somebody who's, you know, 60 and sedentary, working on the computer all day, compared to an athlete, what you're going to need is different. So
Yes.
yeah, we've got to completely customize it to each person.
All right. I could talk to you like all day, and
I
I'm like, I have all
same.
these questions I still
I
want to
know.
ask you. But here's the thing.
Same.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I did? Or is there anything that's on your heart that you feel like you still just want to say or share? And you can totally take a moment if you want.
Oh, thank you for asking me that. That you are in control. You're in control of what happens to your body. You know, yes, we get diseases. Yes, there's things we're born with and genetic predispositions and so forth. But for the most part, you can control how you feel. And even if you have a disorder or a health condition, you can feel better with it.
Oh,
And
that just
this
made
is
me emotional.
absolutely true. You know, for women going through menopause, is I don't have any menopause symptoms because I've really got my nutrition and my hormones dialed in. And you know, we help people on HRT or not HRT. That's a personal decision to be discussed with your practitioner. So, you know, whether you're on a GLP-1 medication or not, we help both kinds of people, you know. So there are so many things that you can do. And food and lifestyle choices are so powerful. And so, you know, if you're sitting listening to this thinking, oh, I'm one of those people and I'm too far gone, you're not. You're absolutely not. And how do we eat the whale? One bite at a time. So it's just, we make one choice, then we make another one, then we make another one. We don't eat the whole whale. We may decide we don't like that particular whale. We want one little bite and go, okay, I want to eat a bit more of that, you know, or we might decide we want to go over there and eat that whale, you know. So we just do it step by step by step. I mean, that would be the thing I would close with, is the mantra in our community is good, better, or best, not perfect. So we're not aiming for perfection. We're just aiming to make the next choice. I used to say the next better choice, but now I just say the next choice, because going back to Nelson Mandela, if we never lose, we either win or we learn. Every choice serves us. So just make a choice and then look at what you're going to learn from it, period, and just have fun.
Well, look, I hope a bunch of people make a choice to join your programs because I know they are life-changing. I've seen the testimonials. I've been through the program. I know what people are sharing. I've heard them on the calls getting emotional and writing in the group. This is the first time ever that. And it's like, oh my God, like you can't help but get like wicked excited. So if
I know
somebody is,
it's an honor to be a part of that for sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean, all of the best of you, like all of your skill sets and the way your brain works and your acting and like all the parts of you have come to create and serve this community in such a beautiful way. And you are making an impact and you are making a difference. I would even go so as far to say is not only are you saving lives, you are helping people shift the qualities of how they feel in their lives, which affects how you parent, how you love, how you show up in your business, how you show up in your relationships and your marriages. It's not just food, you guys. This is a whole exponential, like all areas of your life, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual are affected by what we are putting in our bodies and how we're thinking about things. And that support in that community. It's like your parents giving you that safe place as a child, like you matter. You're kind of recreating that now for so many adults, like little kids in adult bodies who didn't get their hands held. And you're creating a really beautiful healing community. And I hope you really like get that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we have a beautiful community of incredible people, and everybody just celebrates and elevates each other, and it's extraordinary. It's an honor to be a part of it. And so thank you. You're part of that community now too. And thank you for the work that you're doing. There's so much synergy. And I remember the first time we spoke for 4.5 hours. And we just could, me too. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I mean, it was like, I'd met a soulmate. It was extraordinary. So I feel so honored to be on your podcast. I know how picky you are. So thank you for giving me this time. I loved it.
I loved it and I love you. And will you please just tell folks in your own voice? I want to make sure they're going to the right places. I have all your links, but will you just tell them how to find you, how to join the program and like all that?
Yeah, you can go to skinny60.com. That's skinny and then 60.com. You can go to the Blender Girl if you just want some yummy, delicious, easy recipes. And if you, anything's at tessmasters.com. So I've got a bunch of different websites. I love to create websites. You know that. Yeah, I know you're holding up the book. You're so beautiful. Yeah, you can get the Blender Girl smoothies, or the perfect blend on Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And it's just fun. I mean, come on. Isn't just eating yummy food the best?
Come on, look it. So the 60-day reset coming up in January. There's the 7-day, what do you call that one? The
7-day kickstart. Yeah.
7-day kickstart. Check them out. You guys, if you have any questions, you heard her, you can do a free 15-minute like consultation just to find out if it's a good fit. Please take her up on this offer. Tess, I adore you. Thank you so much for being here. It has been such a pleasure. And I'm so excited for my community to get to meet you and fall in love with you just like I have.
Oh, thank you. I love you.
Bye, sweetheart.